2021-2022 NBA season coming up very soon. I decided now is as good of a time as any to start discussing every single team before the season starts. In my opinion, it made the most sense to go in the order from the worst to the best teams in the league, by my own prediction for this upcoming season. And right now I'm at the number 11 spot, and at the number 11 spot I do have the Chicago Bulls, meaning I think the Chicago Bulls will be the 11th best team in the NBA this upcoming season. Basically, in today's video, I'll just be discussing how good I think the Chicago Bulls will be, as well as how good their players will do and things like that. Before we get into the video, I ask you to drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content. Also, if you want to help me reach my goal of 2,000 subscribers. Also, drop a comment on this video as I do respond to all of my comments. And play that intro. Hallelujah. 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 But quickly before we get into the video, I gotta show you this really quickly. This is the new Diversion water bottle. It's basically a water bottle where you can put stuff like your keys, wallet, and other kind of small items like in your water bottle that will make you lose it way less. And it will also just help you to not have your pockets full and things like that. Click the link in my bio if you're interested, and into the video. I want to discuss the Chicago Bulls on the offensive side of the floor. And if I'm being honest, I think this is a team that will be very good on the offensive side of the floor, as this offseason they were one of the biggest winners, probably even the biggest winner of the offseason. They added multiple great offensive players that I think will really help them out and take pressure off of their star player in Zach LaVine. They got Lonzo Ball and DeMar DeRozan. I think this team at worst is going to be an average offense, and at best could be like the 7th best offense in the league. And if that's a prediction, if I had to make my own prediction, I had to rank them like at the 11th spot, which is where I rank them in general. The biggest thing I see holding them back from being like a real top 5 offense or maybe even a top 10 offense is the fact that the spacing on this team isn't the best, but nonetheless I do think they have a lot of like shot creators, playmakers, and just enough floor spacers to at least definitely be an above average offense. They're definitely going to be led by Zach LaVine, has shown himself to be one of the best shooting guards in the league and one of the best scorers in the NBA. Last season he averaged a crazy efficient 27 points per game. I generally think Zach LaVine is one of the most underrated players in the league, and he's on the level of guards like Donovan Mitchell and Devin Booker. He might not be as good as them, but you could definitely argue that he is. I wouldn't argue that, but he is on their level. This upcoming season, I'm expecting Zach LaVine to average somewhere around the same number that he did last season. Maybe a little less points, but definitely on greater efficiency. I'm on the Zach LaVine hype train, and I think everyone should be too. Next, I want to talk about Nikola Vucevic, who the Bulls traded for last year at the trade deadline. To be honest, I think he's the perfect fit on this team. He's a center who can do a little bit of everything. He can space the floor at an actual elite level, not just for a big man. He's just a very good three-point shooter in general. He can post up, pop out at an elite level. I think he's going to flourish this season while he's playing with such great playmakers in Lonzo Ball and DeMar DeRozan. He's never played with a lot of talent like this. I think he's going to get a lot of easy shots that he ever has in his career. I just expect a good all-star level season from him. He might not average as much points as he did last season, but I just think he's going to play at his absolute best, especially efficiency-wise. Next, I want to talk about DeMar DeRozan, who the Bulls signed this offseason. And basically, DeRozan is not a great fit with any team in the league because you just cannot space the floor at all. But I think on the Bulls, DeRozan on the Bulls actually makes a lot of sense. The Bulls were lacking a playmaker. Now they have DeRozan, who's one of the best playmakers in the NBA. He's not just an above average one or even a good one. He's actually one of the best playmakers in the NBA. He averaged 7 assists last season with barely any turnovers. I think he's going to just make this team better. It's going to give them another go-to perimeter scorer outside of Zach LaVine, because before DeRozan came, their go-to scorer outside of Zach LaVine was Kobe White. That's simply not going to get the job done. I think DeRozan is going to do really well in Chicago, and I hope he does since he's one of my favorite players. They also signed Lonzo Ball this offseason. I think that was a huge W signing because Lonzo can bring in playmaking, which, as I said, was definitely one of their weaknesses last season. But now Lonzo can also space the floor at an elite level. He just shot nearly over 40% from 3 last season on a lot of attempts. And I think he should be a solid point guard. In some interviews he's been in, he's recently been saying he's going to go back to UCLA Lonzo, which means he's just like a passing mainly guard, not really trying to score. I think that's exactly what they need from them. They already have enough really good scorers in Zach LaVine, Vucevic, and DeRozan. They don't need Lonzo to try and go out there and average like 16 points or anything. If he could just average a solid 12 to 14 points and average like 8 assists, just playmaking the offense, I definitely think he can really help this team out. He's also very good on the defensive side of the floor, which is exactly what they need. Next, to talk about Patrick Williams, who was really I think he's like a really under the radar guy now because of all the moves that the Bulls made. But he was very good in his rookie season. He showed a lot of signs and potential of what he could be in the future, which maybe is a star player. I think this season he's going to play very well because he's going to get so much easy shots with all the talent that's surrounding him. And all he's going to have to do is play some very good defense, and he can secure his minutes. He's a guy who I think can knock down open jump shots. And on the defensive side of the floor, we all know how good he can be. And I think he's going to take that next step to maybe even being an all-NBA level defender. Maybe not this year, but definitely in the next 2 to 3 years. But nonetheless, I really think Patrick Williams will really play well this season. Next, I want to talk about Kobe White, who Bulls fans will either overrate or underrate. To be honest, I think Kobe is a guy who's going to be a perfect 6-man because he's a guy who can get buckets, not much else. He's not really a good passer. He's not that good of a defender, not an amazing rebounder, nothing like that. But I do think he can get buckets, and that's the type of player you would want to come off your bench. He's definitely going to be coming off the bench for the Bulls now because he's not starting over Lonzo Ball. And I just think that he's going to have a pretty good season because I don't like to be negative on players. Even though he definitely has some weaknesses, he hasn't had a terrible start to his career. I definitely think there's a chance he could maybe be in 6-man of the year conversations. I just think Kobe White's going to have a pretty good year. I don't know if he's going to be like a star player in the future or anything like that, like what a lot of people think. But I definitely think he's going to be a valuable player to this team, and maybe even postseason time coming. Maybe if Lonzo Ball struggling, because we've seen him do that a lot, bringing Kobe White to get you buckets. I don't know. To discuss some of the other players they have on their team, Alex Caruso, they signed this offseason as a pretty solid backup point guard. He has great defense and just ability to control the tempo of the game. He can also space the floor out at a pretty good level. They have Derrick Jones Jr., who's a pretty solid and athletic defender. Troy Brown Jr. showed some signs of being a good player. Not really a star player, but being a good player. Matt Thomas is one of the best three-point shooters in the league. His defense is just atrocious. But nonetheless, I think the Bulls will be above average on offense, but I don't think they'll be one of the elite offenses. Maybe like rank around 7th at best. I definitely think they'll be much improved from they were last season, though. To discuss the Chicago Bulls on the defensive side of the floor, I definitely think they improved this offseason with their signings of Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball, but I don't think they're going to be amazing on that side of the floor, because when you just look at this roster, they don't have too much great defenders, just a bunch of average to slightly below average ones. Nikola Vucevic is actually one of the worst defenders in the league, because as a big man, he doesn't protect the paint at all. He's terrible at switching onto perimeter players or guarding the pick and roll, and Zach LaVine is not a bad defender. A lot of people think he's actually a liability. When he's actually guarding the ball, he's actually pretty solid. When it comes to guarding off the ball, he's pretty terrible because he has so much load on offense. But now this season, he won't be asked to do as much, so maybe he'll be better on that side of the floor. Kobe White is not a good defender at all. DeMar DeRozan is average at best. This is just not a team filled with a bunch of good defenders. Their best defenders are Lonzo Ball, who's actually one of the best guard defenders in the league, but he wasn't as good last season as he was with the Lakers. Patrick Williams looks like he's going to be a really good defender even at his early age. Alex Caruso is a pretty solid defender, and what's his name? Derrick Jones Jr. is actually a pretty solid defender. But for that reason, I think the Bulls at best will be like the 12th spot in defense, and at worst like the 17th or 18th spot. I don't think it's going to be like an absolute weakness for them, but I definitely don't think it's going to be a big strength for them, especially as much as offense will be for them, in my opinion. To answer the question of why the Chicago Bulls are ranked number 11th on my list is due to the fact that I simply
don't think the Bulls are real contenders. Even though they did make some fantastic moves this offseason, I'm not just going to jump the gun and put them in my top 10 teams already without even seeing them play a real game. I think ranking them as high as I am is pretty high. I'm pretty much higher on the Bulls than most people, unless you're a Bulls fan. And I'm assuming they're going to be one of the better teams in the East, but I don't think they're in that championship title contender list. Teams like the Lakers, Nets, Warriors, Suns, Bucks, and others. And when it comes to like other teams in the Eastern Conference and like why they're ranked below them, even if I don't think they're title contenders, I just feel like those teams have better chemistry, more talent, more experience, and things like that. I think the Bulls will definitely be good, and I think they'll have their best season since Derrick Rose's MVP year, but I don't see them being one of the 10 best teams in the league like next season. And I just want to make it clear, when I say I don't see them being a top 10 team in the league next season, I'm not saying it's impossible, because I definitely think it's very much possible. It's not crazy to think the Chicago Bulls could get like the 4th seed or something, but what I'm saying is I just wouldn't predict it right now. It's definitely possible though. If I had to predict the Bulls, like where they're gonna finish in the standings, I say they win around 50 games, and I say at best they're like the 3rd seed, and at worst like the 7th seed, because it's like a whole new team. Maybe they struggle, you know. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. Let me know whether or not you think the Chicago Bulls will be really good next season. Drop a like on this video to help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content. Also, if you want to reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers, drop a comment on this video, as I do respond to all of my comments. And I'm out.